Yeah, he's getting closer, but as I've said countless times, we just need to set him up to have the best chance to be able to perform when he gets in there, and he's getting closer. We gave him a week off the week before last, and he got a little bit more match conditioning last week. I'd think he probably needs another couple. I'm not sure, but even then he needs to play well. We need to see what the dynamic is of the team that we're playing and all that sort of stuff. So I know that everyone in the football world wants to know an exact date when George Wardlaw's going to make his debut, and believe me, everyone at the North Melbourne Footy Club's keen for it to happen too, but we just got to make sure it's the right time, and this week probably not quite there yet.
I guess how much do you have to temper expectations as well, given there will be injuries with George?
Yeah, that's right, and we know he's had a pretty disrupted first part, or especially most of last year, where he was enormously disrupted, and so we tried to get him up and going pretty early here, and it was just like no, we got to rebuild his strength and his endurance capacity, because he'd been had complications for a period of time, and so we've done that, and he's responded really well. He's absorbed it really well over that time, because young kids, all they want to do is just get in and play. So he's been patient, and he's making some really good progress. And he played some pretty good footy for us last week in the twos against Gold Coast. But our view is he just needs a little bit more match conditioning.
Another young player in Harry Sheezel seemed to struggle with a tag early last week. How do you help him to ensure that he deals with that better next time?
Well, that's all just part of the process. It wasn't really a strong lockdown tag, to be fair. Holman went to him at different stages, but it wasn't really a strong lockdown. Overall, our whole team, let alone Shees, just didn't have a good day, and we didn't give him the best chance. But if he does get attention, that's going to happen from time to time with every player that has any sort of influence on the game. There's going to be an opposition that's going to try and stop that influence somehow. And when you got a young player that comes into the competition, I know that it's an argument that's been made all the time in regard to Collingwood. What do you do with Nick Dacos when he's just regularly getting 30 touches a game? You need to work out a strategy to try and stop that from happening, especially if it's hurting on the scoreboard. So, Shees had started the season well and had been regularly getting 25 and 30 touches, and Gold Coast put a bit more attention into him. So that's now back to us and to Shees to work out how we best deal with that. But that'll be a week-to-week thing, and ultimately a longer-term thing on how he copes with it over the long term.
How do you find it, having someone sent to him for 6 games into his career?
Well, as I said, I don't believe it was a really strong tag. At different stages, Holman was on him, and other stages he wasn't. Just at certain stages of the game where they thought he was the most significant threat, that's where he had some attention. But everyone at different stages has an opponent, don't they? It's a game of footy, and so you just got to deal with it. And sometimes the attention's a little bit closer, but it's a great learning curve for him, and a good learning curve for us as well.
On that, you mentioned Dacos, Ella. Is there still room for a Stephen Baker type in the game? I think every Essendon supporter say, why don't we cut him off the knees a bit?
Yeah, well, it's more for the individual club and team who comes up against that type of player, what suits them at that point in time, and sometimes with the way teams play with their systems and their structures, that they don't want to tag because it disrupts the rest of their side. But sometimes when a bloke is that compelling that they're having that much influence on games, sometimes you've got to forego your structures and systems just to make sure you get that done. Because I'm sure if Nick Dacos didn't play last week, that I said, gee, that's a headache we don't have to worry about. He's a quality player, and so that would be the challenge of. And it's not just, we're facing that this week ourselves. You're coming up against the midfield with Petrarca and Oliver and these guys. It's just like, wow, what do? Do you tag one of these guys or don't you? If you decide to tag, there's going to be some implications for your system to do that. If you don't tag, you're at the mercy of those guys getting off the chain and really hurting you. So, geez, that's the art of coaching, and you don't always get it right, I can assure you.
On the art of coaching, which bit of your expert manual do you go into this week after a really good start, a couple of tough losses? just to make sure that the wheels don't fall off a little bit?
Yeah, well, listen, they're a high-quality opponent. They played some really good footy on Monday night and have played some pretty good footy across the course of the year, obviously. But we got to more worry about ourselves and where we are on our journey, what we need to do. And yeah, we've played. Four of our last 5 games have been interstate, not one of those home game in terms of a Blundstone. Yeah, that's a pretty tough journey for anyone to have to cope with, let alone a side that didn't perform so well last year. So we're hoping that MCG, big occasion, sleep in our own bed might help us a little bit, but that's not going to be the be all and end all. But we've got a patch of games here now where we'd like to really significantly judge ourselves on where we're at and what we're doing and the progress we're making. And some of that won't necessarily be in wins and losses. Some of it will just be, debutants like George and some of these younger players coming in. Up until this point, we've given some of the older players an opportunity, but there'll be a tipping point in our season where if our season doesn't go so well, that we just don't want to put too many young blokes into the side all at once. We just need some older guys in there that just steer the ship and guide them. But by and large, if our performances don't warrant us being competitive enough, then we're better off just going with the younger kids and just copping whatever comes our way. But we're trying to find the balance between some experience with the older guys just showing the way, and it allows the Sheasels, from our point of view, the Sheasels and the Charlie Combins, for instance, and Miller Bergman until he got ill, these sort of kids that were getting a go, they were doing it nicely in amongst the more senior guys. We've just been a little bit disrupted in the last 2 or 3 weeks, a bit of the interstate stuff, but Larky got hurt at the start of the Carlton game. And, in hindsight now we'd say, geez, he shouldn't have even played against Brisbane. We should have just rested him. But he's a leader. He wants to play. We haven't got a hell of a lot in terms of focal points up forward. He's a leading goal kicker in the competition at the time. It's just like, oh yeah, he'll be right. But with carrying an injury, your form just slowly dissipates, and so even as an experienced coach, you're learning all the time about your players and your structures, and we'll just continue to learn on this journey to get ourselves back up the ladder.
How's Jai looking? Do you think he'll be able to be?
Yeah, well, he'll need to train today, and it's amazing what they can do with surgeries nowadays. I broke my hand when I was playing, and I was out for 6 weeks because that's what it took for a bone to heal. Now they can, with pins and plates and all sorts of things, a bit of metalwork that they can fix you up and get you going again within a week. Some even can get going straight away. So he'll train today and see how he goes, and if he's reasonably pain-free and he's able to tackle and grapple and do those sorts of things and handle the ball okay, then we're hoping he'll be able to play for us.
Just in terms of bigger picture items, it looks like the Tassie licence is going to get ticked off. I mean, how pleased are you given your work?
Yeah, well, excited because I had a role with the Tassie government for about 18 months to assist in that whole process of putting more or less a feasibility study together. I worked as part of the Tassie Task Force. There was about 6 or 8 of us that did a lot of work, and my particular brief was to go and study, particularly stadium right around the world, but mainly America. And so that's been the sticking point, which has been a little bit of a frustration for mine, because right from the get-go, I'm saying we've actually seen it in our country here, what it's done for Adelaide by taking games to Adelaide Oval, and what it's done for Perth by building Optus Stadium. I know that they could do something really, really special. They've done it in San Francisco, they've done it in Green Bay, they've done it in London, they've done it right around the world, they've done it in Buenos Aires. It's just like right around the world. Stadium are becoming not just a sporting precinct, but an economic precinct of 24/7 activity, not just game day, but concerts, activity, universities, shopping centres. The economic benefit that will provide for Tassie if they do it the right way, and particularly with such significant government support that they've got, where the state government is more or less their major sponsor. Wow, there's not a club in the competition that's got that. So to have that benefit as well, it's just extraordinary. They could do something really, really special down there.
Do you feel like the attraction's there for players? We saw one of your former charges, James Sicily, get a bit of hot water for saying maybe he wouldn't necessarily want to move down there?
I don't think Cecil. I'm surprised he even moved out of Melton, let alone moving out of Melbourne. So that doesn't surprise me too much that Cis might not be too keen on going down there. Having said that, he's been going down there to play footy for the last 10 years in Launceston. But I just look at the Geelong Footy Club and the significant strategic advantage they've got by offering something different. They are an AFL professional team playing in a rural community. Gosh, something special about that. You say, that's not going to be too attractive for people. They just want the bright lights. Jeremy Cameron didn't want the bright lights. Neither did Paddy Dangerfield. So it all depends on the individual and what they want. And if they set their club up in the right way down there, I don't see it as an impediment. I actually see it as a competitive advantage that they've got. They haven't got it over Geelong, but they've got it over 17 other clubs in the competition.
What about getting another 50 players to the level? Is the depth all big enough?
Once again, like I came from a little country town in Western Victoria called Conaiva, and when that was in Essendon zone, where there was a reason for a club to go up there and nurture that zone, there was 4 players that came out of Conaiva in a 10-year period. Myself, Johnny Barnes, Glenn Hawker and Roger Merritt. And not just playing one game of footy. And that was great for a little country town to produce a guy that just played a game of footy. Like Roger Merritt played over 300 games, Glenn Hawker over 200, Johnny Barnes nearly 200, me mid-hundreds. It's just like, but since they had the draft rather than zones, and you couldn't get in there, a club couldn't get in there to grow the area and get benefit out of growing that area, 0. 35 years, 0 from Conaiva. 0 from Nil, 0 from Dimbulla. Dimbulla had Watson and Nagel, like decorated, highly decorated players in the competition, and now 0. Tasmania in the last 10 years, 20 years, it's that northern part of Tassie in particular. Like if we can put a flag on the hill to give all these Tasmanian kids an opportunity, and the Tassie side knows that if we invest in these kids, they're going to get an opportunity to play for their state in the AFL. God, you just wait and see what this could do for them.
Virtual now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. There's kids down there, but they just don't. And there's kids at Conaiva too, and there's kids, way out at Bairnsdale and up at Mildura. Like Mildura used to, and Swan Hill and that sort of area for Richmond in the years. That used to be a hotbed of players. Northern Tasmania, a hotbed of players, extraordinary. The Gale brothers and the Phoebe brothers and the Richardsons and so many great players just out of Tasmania. And now they've got this opportunity to get all of those, because I'm sure part of the deal with setting up that club will be that if you're born in Tasmania, they'll get first dibs on every Tasmanian player.
Ross Lyon said yesterday the competition will have to pay a price, though, at least in the short term, to get players into the club that might, if they came knocking for your Sheasels and your Wardlaws, how would you feel for the long-term gain, I suppose, for the competition?
Yeah, well, the mechanics of all that, we've known for a long time as soon as there's a new club that comes into the competition. But I think there's been a significant amount of learning too in the setup of clubs, and I'm sure they'll do it a little bit differerly. But when you bring a new club into the competition. But I firmly the view, having done some work on it with the whole feasibility study of Tassie coming in, they've got to grow their product from within. So we'll go and poach, and we'll go and get draft picks. There'll be a little bit of that, but by and large, if they set it up early enough and get their academy going as soon as it's announced, and nurture the talent, ideally that's where they want their talent to come from anyway. And Tasmania's got plenty there, as long as they put the flag on the hill to say you're born in Tasmania, you get the chance to play for the club, both men and women, girls and boys. They get the chance to play for the state that they're born in.
About what it maybe means off field? You got a lot of Tasmania-related logo sponsors.
No, well, I think both the Hawthorn Footy Club and North Melbourne Footy Club over the journey, we're just temporary custodians really of providing AFL product down in that state, and we've long held the view both at this club and at Hawthorn that if the competition deemed it fit that Tassie should enter the competition, then we'd be in full support of that. There'll be some repercussions for that. We're Hawthorn and North are going to play their away strip games that they're playing 4 each down there. But the boards of the respective clubs will work that out, and the league will work that out in due course, I'm sure.
You mentioned a young player earlier, Combin. He looks like a bit of a rare bear, but he's in there and he's athletic and aggressive. Are you liking what you see from him?
Yeah, and I mean, it's, Will Phillips and Tom Power, they're still young players in our system that are getting exposure to the level. Will missed a lot of footy last year because of glandular fever. I think he hardly played at all last year, and even the year before in his first year he played a lot as the sub. So he's just finding his feet as an AFL player. Charlie too. Charlie, I think played 1 or 2 games in 2 years and hadn't done a pre-season until this year. And now he's able finally to get a full pre-season and actually seen some benefit with what he can do on field. So he's just a young player learning his craft. It's the most difficult position on the ground to play as a key forward, and he's learning a lot every week. And he's done some really, really good things, and he's learning all the time. So he's been a real positive for us in the year to date.
6 rounds into your time at North Melbourne, how do you feel like your list stacks up to the early days at Hawthorn?
It's pointless making comparisons because it's 20 years apart. But we know we've got a clear vision on where we want to take the footy club and what we need to do, and it's just going to take some time. Got to get the right people involved, and that takes a period of time too. It's not just, but by and large, the bulk of the people that we need for us to go forward as a footy club are here. And we now just got to get the mechanics of us being able to learn how we put all those people together to all get us on the right path towards where we want to go. And it just takes a little bit of time, unfortunately. And we know we're out as a footy club, whether that's from Sonia and the board all the way through to the executive and then to obviously the players and the coaching staff. We know what we need to do, and we'll just roll the sleeves up and get to work.